The UK Supreme Court will rule today whether Prime Minister Theresa May has the power to start Brexit or whether the country's parliament must first approve her plans. And that potentially gives lawmakers a chance to block or delay the UK's withdrawal from the EU. The case was brought to court by a number of parties who claim Brexit would result in the loss of freedoms and rights, including the freedom of movement. They also mentioned certain countries within the kingdom overwhelmingly who voted to remain. And they argue only Parliament can be responsible for taking away freedoms from the people, and therefore Parliament must have the final say. Almost 200 demonstrators gathered outside Parliament to protest against the Brexit case in the Supreme Court. They believe it risks undermining the will of the public, a majority of whom voted to leave the bloc. UKIP MP Gerard Batten believes all of this could have been easily avoided if indeed Theresa May had triggered Article 50 the moment she became Prime Minister.
It is a bit immaterial either way now, because Theresa May said that she's going to have a parliamentary vote anyway on triggering Article 50, so it seems like a bit of a storm in a teacup now. What she should have done, of course, is triggered Article 50 straight away when she became Prime Minister. It only required a note on a piece of paper. There is no other mechanism, so if she'd have been serious, she could have done it then. Instead of that, we've had a 7 months delay, and we now have this enormous amount of public money spent on the High Court and the Supreme Court. She sounds as though she's saying the right thing, but in actual fact she's not going to trigger Article 50 again until March. Then we're going to have 2 years of negotiations, and then the whole thing has to be voted on by Parliament. And at the time I interpreted that as meaning that they could actually vote against whatever this great mythical deal is that she's going to come up with. That was qualified later on, I think, by one of her ministers who said that, oh, well, if they refuse the bill, if they vote against it, then we'll leave unilaterally anyway. So we might as well leave unilaterally now and save ourselves 2 years of anguish.
It is RT International. The Russian Emergencies Ministry and its Israeli counterpart have agreed to cooperate for the next 2 years. The announcement was made by the head of the Russian Emergencies Ministry during a visit to Tel Aviv. The countries will work together on monitoring and forecasting emergencies, fires and natural disasters, while all response units will cooperate and provide assistance to people in distress. Meantime, Israel's Supreme Court has decided to halt a deal to relocate an Israeli residential outpost in the West Bank, despite ruling it was built on private Palestinian land. However, the eviction of Arab citizens living there is going ahead. Paula Sleer reports.
Ahmed's family has been living in this East Jerusalem apartment for 3 generations. But despite faithfully paying the rent for more than 60 years, they are now facing eviction.
They don't want Arabs to live here in this apartment. They want to bring Jews instead of that. And we are fighting for our rights.
The Israeli High Court ordered the Gaith Sublebans to vacate the premises after a Jewish ownership claim. Arab residents of Jerusalem say the Justice Ministry, the Jerusalem municipality and the Israeli police are all in cahoots to force them out of the mostly Arab neighborhoods of the city's eastern quarters. For a long time, there has been a move by religious Jews to live here in East Jerusalem. Often assisted with donations from abroad, it starts a long and painful process of court orders, evictions, and questions over who exactly owns this land. Data collected by left-wing Israeli groups shows that the Jewish presence in the area has grown by almost 40% in the past 7 years. The dispute goes back to 1948, when Jordan captured East Jerusalem, expelling Jews from their homes. 19 years later, Israel retook the land in the Six-Day War. While Jews have been able to get their property back, the same legal right has never been afforded to Arabs who lost their homes.
When we came back in '67, we suddenly saw that, of course, all our property is now populated by Arabs living here. And we said, okay, stay here even though it's our home. But now some people in Israel try to buy our property, lost property again, from people who want to sell it.
But Ahmed's family can't sell. The titles to the apartment are held by an Israeli trust, and if they leave empty-handed. For now, the grandparents can remain, but not for more than 10 years, and they won't have an easy time. The ownership structure of the building has become so messy that it's difficult to even get into the apartment.
We used to come to the house and to our apartment before from this side, where you can see the new stones. This is what the sharing entrance. We were having a situation that we have a second floor apartment without an entrance. And if we want to enter it, we will have to go inside the settler house and jump from their window.
The Sublabans are one of the only Arab families still living in this building. The others have already left, and Jewish residents have moved in.
Also in this building we have another 4 families who are facing eviction orders recently. 2 families up there and 2 families down.
In what is a microcosm of the larger Israeli-Palestinian conflict, never-ending disputes over land continue to diminish the chances of ever reaching a peaceful resolution. Paula Sleer, RT, East Jerusalem.
And coming up next year on RT International, good leadership or extreme policing. A look at the Philippine president's massive crackdown on crime and narcotics. Next on this network.